in the raw.
This is a very emotional period for African peoples around the world, especially those of the New World. And of course, for many, many in Africa who had lost families during the colonial conspiracies to enslave, desecrate, divide and rule Africa, and abuse and deal and barter in the flesh, the blood, and the sinews of the African people. And the topic is people of African descent, modern leaders across the world. The abolition of slavery is one of the greatest, most significant effects. The most significant events in the history of our country, Guyana and the West Indies. The desire of finally being free became a reality, allowing our brothers and sisters of the African heritage to grow to their full potential, to help others, and serve as role models for future generations. And I would add also for other future migrant workers in this case. Back to the article, as we learn more about the events and individuals that led to the emancipation of our brothers and sisters of African descent, who they truly were and where they came from. We discover a people and a nation of unsurpassed beauty and technical genius, to say the least. Africa is the birthplace of the world's most ancient civilizations. Additionally, the roots of every family tree may be traced back to Africa, as can the history of civilization. This is not only captivating to me, but also extremely empowering. Ladies and gentlemen, what I'm trying to say here is that Africa, being the motherland of all humanity, all nations, in the African genome, in their DNA, in their features and personalities, you can see traces of the Korean race, the Chinese race, the Indian or South Asian race, which comprises the Pakistanis, the Arabs. You can see the Aborigines of South America and the Apache nations of North America, and in South America and the West Indies, the Arawaks and the Caribs, or what is referred to as the indigenous and formerly Amerindians. We can see in the African features all these nations' features, including the Icelandic nations such as Norway, Greenland. Of course, friends and family, this is not only captivating, I repeat for emphasis, to me, but also extremely empowering. And I'm emotional when it comes to the African nations. I feel as if within me I have the spirit of the great African ancestors roaming in my DNA and my mind and soul. People of African descent are descended from ancient to rich and sophisticated cultures that develop a plethora of technologies and innovations in a variety of fields. From the simple items like the ironwood axe to the complex ones such as the steam engine, to electricity and computers, the engineering and architectural feats of the Egyptians, the interesting raised obelisks, and the hundreds of pyramids, the great Sphinx of Giza, the impressive cities of Mali, including Timbuktu, with grand palaces, universities, and mosques, etc., are all works of contemporary wonder that inspires us. Today, we marvel at these inventions, as well as the thousands of years of these breathtaking architectures and accomplishments. Amazingly, even to this day, we still are in awe of how these phenomenal masterpieces of architecture were constructed. This is the brilliance of the people of African heritage, and not necessarily, as they try to put it when it comes to greatness of Africans and their contributions, they say it was done by aliens. Before the Europeans arrived and seized control of Africa, there were massive and unparalleled achievements in the various regions and their cities. In the kingdom of Aksum, a present-day northern Ethiopia, they developed a trade route. In Abyssinia, now Ethiopia, the king Negus or Al-Nagashi was a person known for fairness and whose nation treasured human rights, so much so that he rescued Islam during the time of our beloved Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings of God be upon him. For a Muslim, this country is enshrined in our holy scriptures, the Quran, and history to represent the freedom from persecution and liberation from fear. The Kingdom of Ghana has the characteristics of a great nation of the present era. In the city of Timbuktu, they had great morals and developed the center of Islamic art. Because of commerce, the Kingdom of Ghana in Western Africa became one of the richest civilizations. It is even said that the emperor of the great Zimbabwe ate from porcelain plates that came from China. The Red Sea served as a thoroughfare, the Nile as a thoroughfare. The Sahara Desert was a highway, as was the Indian Ocean, a watery highway. However, the subsequent slave trade not only damaged the continent's economic growth, but it also altered ideas of the African continent's history and importance. We witnessed in particular Belgium's King Leopold II, who converted a large portion of Africa into his personal real estate, enslaved its inhabitants, and left a legacy of misery that lingers to this day. His cruelty, and I add, his cruelties is the legacy of evil and hate for the African nations, one for which they can never be forgiven. We witnessed the same of the then famous generals who fought to the bitter end to keep slavery alive, even though they lost their battles. And they have had statues erected in their honor, particularly in the United States of America. Thankfully, we are seeing a revolution whereby persons are fighting against these statues because they are a disgrace, a shame to the democratic norms that the United States of America upholds. Unfortunately, all of these injustices were perpetuated against people of African ancestry by those seeking to legitimize an economic system based on the exploitation of people of African descent and Africa. As a result, an entire nation's history was stolen from them, wiped out. Nonetheless, despite suffering under the atrocious system of slavery, individuals of African descent made enormous contributions to the development of our civilizations. And if I may add too, in any country, wherever they were taken, they made contributions that astounds the human mind. And I continue. Their innate intelligence provided a depth of knowledge that would have been hard for any other society to achieve. While we know that slavery had a negative influence on education, some Africans were educated on their own and began to teach others because they were slaves. It was difficult for them to obtain the necessary materials. Yet despite this, they contributed to the enrichment of the world. And in reality, we observed that slavery did not hinder people from completing their roots, even though it took away many of their liberties and destroyed their identities. But we also saw how determined they were and their unwavering resilience to overcome all obstacles. as we saw with Mr. Toussaint Louverture, who led Haiti's liberation, and our own Kofi, aka Coffee, who led the slave rebellion in Berbice by fighting a revolution against the Dutch in the Berbice enclave of Magdalenenburg, protesting harsh and inhuman treatment, which subsequently overthrew the Dutch. If I may add at this time, so it shows that the Africans were not just a docile kind of people accepting slavery, and every opportunity they had, they were planning to overthrow, they were planning to liberate themselves. And back to the article. One thing is certain, we must honor the Africans who were subjected to slavery, since they made significant contributions to the development of our society. Further, we must continue to learn from them in order to make the greatest use of their knowledge, for they have demonstrated their genius throughout history. Consider writing, which started in African civilizations before spreading to other regions of the world, long before it was adopted elsewhere. The Egyptians employed hieroglyphics for writing. We must correct this misconception that Africa is limited. And as we, people of the world, must help contribute to preserving the rich heritage of the people of African descent and propel them to their rightful role as modern leaders across the world. All Caribbean countries, including Guyana, have had presidents, prime ministers, and others leaders of African descent. At this juncture, we commemorate and celebrate all of the courageous men and women of African descent around the world, and in Guyana in particular, who struggled to make this day possible. We owe so much to our forefathers who gave their lives for us, and we owe it to them to carry on their work and legacy. As we honor these freedom fighters, let us express our deep thanks for all they have done for us. For, if I may add at this juncture, ladies and gentlemen, as I wrap up, the African nations, the African countries, whether they were in the form of slavery, who watered the earths of Guyana with their blood and their sweat for generations, and their sinews, and their flesh and body were used and abused by the slave masters, who taught them that they were nothing like base animals. Yet they didn't allow them to learn to read and write. Yet these great peoples were able to learn to read and write on their own, telling them that they cannot read and write and lead because they have no soul. When we know for a fact that the Africans were the first people on the earth and to have been given souls by the Creator, God, Lord of the world, for Africa is the cradle of human birth and creation of God. They tried to make it look as if the Africans contributed nothing to the world, as if they were mere raw flesh to be bartered, to be used and abused. When we know of the great contributions that they have done, and they took away the art of Benin, what is now Nigeria, and all they sculpted their works of art, and they have placed them in the British and European museums in France and otherwise. And many were desecrated. The nose is desecrated, as we saw on the statue in Giza, Egypt, where Napoleon blew out the nose of that statue, which showed obvious resemblance to the peoples of African descent. So, ladies and gentlemen, friends and families, government of Guyana, governments of the free world, let us all celebrate the peoples of African descent as a people from which all humanity originated. Remember, friends and families, Caucasian, the white race, only from the African seed can a white person with green or blue eyes and blonde hair, perfectly white, referred to by you as the albino, can come from. The African race has the power to create all humanity. Your friend, your brother, me, Haji, Dr. Roshan Khan, in the raw. RK's Guyana Free Media saying thank you for listening and sharing the article in the newspapers. This was written to coincide with Liberation Day in Guyana.
Let's start with your full name and where you're from. This book is full of slave histories. I keep a record of most of the slaves that travel through Philadelphia. Some I have to find, most find me.
My name is Araminta Ross Tubman. Folk call me Minty. I come from Dorchester County, Maryland. Farmer Edward Brodus.
Edward Brodus is your master.
Master Brodus dead. His wife, Miss Eliza, owned me and my family.
Not you. Not anymore. So where are the others?
With no others.
But you know, you can trust me. I'm a friend. Who'd you make the journey with?
I left my husband and family. It was just me and the Lord.
Well, I don't know if you know how extraordinary this is, but by some miraculous means, you have made it 100 miles to freedom, all by yourself. Would you like to pick a new name to mark your freedom? Most ex-slaves do. Any name you want.
They call my mama Rick, but her name Harriet. I want my mama name and my husband. Harriet Tubman.
Harriet Tubman. Did your master ever harm you physically? Do you have wounds or scars from beatings?
Overseer cracked my head open when I was about 13. I was at the stove with Master's son Gideon. Big brother Robert, he snuck off and followed us. Didn't trust Master Gideon alone with me. A few minutes later, Overseer busts in looking for Robert, mad as a rabbit hound. Pick up a weight off the counter and hurl it at him, except I stepped between them. Cracked my skull right open. They say I slept most of 2 months. Next thing I remember was seeing my sister's soul. Except I saw it before it happened.
Oh, wait, what do you mean you saw it before it happened?
Well, God showed me. To prepare me, I guess. But when it happened, it hurt so bad. Worse than any beating. Worse than a hole in my head. Hole in my head just made God's voice more clear.
The bravest conductors steal slaves directly from the plantation right under the overseer's nose. They have the hardest jobs.
Oh, Cinnamon, where you gonna run to? Cinnamon, where you gonna run to? Where you gonna run to? All on that day, will I run to the rock? Please hide me and run to the rock. Please hide me and run to the rock. Please hide me, Lord, all on that day. So I ran to the river. It was bleeding to run to the sea. It was bleeding to run to the sea. It was bleeding all on that day. So I ran to the river. It was boiling and run to the sea. It was boiling and run to the sea. It was boiling all on that day. So I ran to the
wife branded me with the hot iron.
Called me nigga like it was my name. The day I reminded him my name is Mac, he beat me senseless.
If I told her I was leaving, she would have carried on so everybody would have known about it. I couldn't say goodbye.
Welcome. Welcome, welcome.
Wait. Take me with you, please. My master trying to kill me.
We definitely gonna need a bigger car.
They're gonna have to come this way. We got every other way blocked off. The letter of the law must be obeyed, and every precaution taken to bring this dangerous wench in alive. Rest assured, she will be tried and executed by the harshest methods available, as dictated by the laws of the state of Maryland.
I'm gonna wet myself.
You know your master better than the lines in your hand. Be him.
Whoa.
Gentlemen, good day. What's all this?
Slave stealers on the loose. That devil Moses. We got a surprise for her.
I hope you catch that bitch and hang her for mine. Get any ideas? Any of them even breathe that name on my farm, I beat them into Sunday. Strange times when a man can't trust his own slaves. Best luck to you.
Ho. We're gonna have to check the card, sir. Sorry to inconvenience you.
Hang on.
Are you related to Luther Grant?
Yes, sir. He's my daddy.
I thought I saw the resemblance. You tell your daddy he owes me a whiskey. Tell him Ned Utley hasn't forgotten. All right, y'all have a nice day. Come on.
You too, Sheriff.
Okay.
Minty! Minty!
Name's Harriet. Toss your gun. Toss your gun. Off your horse. Off your horse. On your knees.
Didn't have to end like this. You could have stayed with us. If only you knew how to behave. But you were unruly and untamed. I guess that's what I liked about you.
You like me too. I know you did. Praying for me when I was sick. Asking God to keep me well.
I asked God how a sickly little boy could think he owned me.
I do own you, Mindy. Even now, you're mine.
I was never yours, Gideon. I was never nobody's property. Ever since your daddy sold my sisters, I prayed for God to make me strong enough to fight. And that's what I prayed for ever since. I reasoned that there was one or two things I had a right to. Liberty or death. If I couldn't have one, I'd have the other.
You know what they're gonna do to you when they catch you. They will tear you limb from limb, tar you and burn you alive. And even if I'm not there to watch it, I can almost smell it now. Like roasting pig.
You're gonna die right here. On a freezing, blood-soaked battlefield. The moans of a generation of young men dying around you in agony for a lost cause, for a vile and wicked idea, for the sin of slavery. Can you hear him? God don't mean people to own people, Gideon. Our time is near. You tried to destroy my family, but you can't. You tried to destroy my people, but you won't. God has shown me the future, and my people are free. My people are free! Suppose there's a snake coiled at your feet and shoots up to bite you. Folks get scared and send for a doctor to cut out the bite. But the snake, he roll up dead. While the doctor cutting, bites you again. In a new place this time. Finally, you realize the snake ain't gonna stop till someone kills him. Slavery is still alive. Those rice fields downriver are feeding rebel troops with the toil of 1,000 slaves still in bondage. Our mission is to free those slaves. We've waited years to be allowed to fight in this war against our own enslavement, and it will not be won without us. Now's our time. You ready to kill the snake?
Yes!
Wade in the water. Wade in the water, children. Wade in the water. God is gonna trouble these waters.